Welcome back to my channel. Another day of sharing interesting videos with you, my viewers. In this video, I have a very interesting story that is making trends on social media. It's about Jeffrey Epstein, a millionaire known for associating with celebrities, politicians, billionaires, and academic stars. Now, Epstein was initially arrested in Palm Beach, Florida in 2005 after he was accused of paying a 14-year-old girl for S. Now, dozens of other underage girls described similar S abuse, but prosecutors ultimately allowed the Francier to plead guilty in 2008 to a charge involving a single victim. Now, he served 13 months in a jail work release program. Some famous acquaintances abandoned him after conviction, but many did not. Now, Epstein continued to mingle with the rich and famous for another decade, often through philanthropic work. Reporting by the Miami Herald renewed interest in the scandal, and federal prosecutors in New York charged him in 2019 with S trafficking. Now, he later unalived himself in jail while awaiting trial. But in this video, the latest update concerning this story, which has just resurfaced, is that after weeks of anticipation, the names of former associate employees, friends, and victims of the late Jeffrey Epstein have finally been released. Now, these names were sealed from a lawsuit filed by Virginia Gulf, an alleged traffic victim, against the lasting Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend. Now, here are some videos I compiled for you guys to watch. Check them out.
After weeks of anticipation, the names of former associates, employees, friends, and victims of the late Jeffrey Epstein have finally been released. These names were sealed from a lawsuit filed by Virginia Gulf, an alleged traffic victim, against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend. Now Maxwell, who is 61 years old, is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence after being convicted in December for her involvement in helping Epstein recruit as a very, very young women. Many of the names that appear in these documents released on Wednesday are not accused of any wrongdoing, and some may have even been mentioned in previous legal proceedings or news accounts. So, hold on, these documents are not an Epstein client list, okay? Let's make that clear. But let's get into these names, shall we? I want to know if any of these names surprised you as much as they surprised me. Now, I gotta tell you, when I saw Naomi Campbell, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Cameron Diaz on the list, I was a little bit shooked. I mean, we've seen these celebrities in the spotlight, but who would have thought that they'd be mentioned in this court case document? But remember, these names are not Epstein's client list. They are just individuals who were mentioned in the court case document. So let's keep that in mind as we continue to follow the story.
Why wasn't Jeffrey Epstein exposed earlier? Well, because in the late 90s and early 2000s, every society page was just printing whatever Jeffrey Epstein said about himself as a truth without investigating him. But then in March of 2003, a journalist at Vanity Fair named Vicky Ward did an investigation of Epstein that was less favorable. She had convinced two sisters who had been assaulted by Epstein to go on record with their story. But that story wouldn't make it into the pages of Vanity Fair, and there are varying accounts of why it didn't make it in. Vicky Ward says her editor at the time, Grayson Carter, was influenced by Epstein and he pulled the story. Grayson Carter says that Vicky Ward didn't do a good enough job getting the details of the abuse fact-checked. He also said that she added the parts about the abuse too close to the print deadline, and so that's why it got pulled. So her piece, The Talented Mr. Epstein, comes out, and it's a combination of sort of backhanded comments and innuendo that he might not be the guy that he says he is. And that's when Jeffrey Epstein started seeing Vicky Ward. According to Ward, Epstein said, "I have reports about you, your husband. I have everything under the sun that was sent to me by people who want to be helpful." Despite this and other menacing remarks, she said, "I still thought that I could win. I really thought I was going to expose Jeffrey Epstein." When the sister's account of abuse didn't make it into the final piece, she said, "I remember sitting in my office and crying. They had been so brave and we let them down."
Okay, you're right. A lot of the women's names were victims, so that makes a lot more sense. But also, I found another New York Mag article with more names and more info. But I want to start off by saying, first of all, it's really weird for this to all come out now when there's something much bigger currently, not something in the past. Like, yes, we should hold them all accountable, but we also need to be paying attention to what's going on in Palestine. So I'll start off with the former Israeli Prime Minister being on the list, because Israel's government has been shady. I'm not going to do a deep dive. You can just screenshot, stop it, pause it, whatever. The documents just came out like 30 minutes ago. Leon Botstein, president of Bard College. Joshua Cooper Ramo, a FedEx board member. Ariane de Rothschild, chairwoman of Edmund de Rothschild Group. Catherine Rumler, Goldman Sachs general counsel. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal. JP Morgan Chase processed over $1 billion for Epstein during his 16 years as a client. Prince Andrew, fucking weird fuck. The list goes on, but you can read the whole thing. It's newyorkmag.com. Okay, the Jeffrey Epstein list is out. Do not eat these. Okay, so here's the official Epstein list, but they did redact 4 names. Okay, let's go over it. Obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia Lee, Kathy Alexander, Miles Alexander, James Ostrich, Philip Barton, redacted. Kate Blanchett, which that hurt, dude. David Boies, Lauren Booth, Evelyn Boulay, Rebecca Boylan, Naomi Campbell. Girl, you weren't only throwing phones. Carolyn Casey, Paul Cassell, Sharon Churcher, Bill Clinton. Not shocking at all. David Copperfield, Alexander Cousteau, Cameron Diaz. That also hurts. What the Cameron? Leonardo DiCaprio. That's not shocking at all. Alan Dershowitz, Dr. Mona Devins, whatever. Redacted. Bradley Edwards, Amanda Ellison, Simmerly Espinoza, Jeffrey Epstein, obviously. Annie Farmer, Marie Farmer. There's a lot else on this. Alexandra Fikai, Crystal Figueroa, Anthony Figueroa. Were they married or siblings? Either way, weird. Luis Frey, Eric Ganny, Meg Garvin, Sheridan Gibson Butte, Robert Jufre Al Gore. What? Ross Gow, Fred Graff, Philip Guderian, redacted. Shannon Harrison, Stephen Hawking. What? Stephen! Victoria Hazel, Brittany Henderson, Brett Jeff, Michael Jackson. Oh, God. Carol Robert Kess, Dr. Karen Kutikoff. Only one doctor so far. Peter Listerman, George Lucas. George Lucas! Sorry, this is my first time reading this. Tony Lyons, Bob Meister, Jamie Mellinson, Lynn Miller, Marvin Minsky, redacted. David Mullen, Joe Pagano, Mary Paluga, J. Stanley Pottinger, Joseph Ricari, Michael Rader, Mark Tafoya, Brent Tyndall, Kevin Thompson, Donald Trump, Ed Tootle, stop, Emma Kimberly Vaughn Edwards, Crescenda Valdez, Anthony Valadares, Maritza Vasquez, Vicky Ward, Jaron Weisfeld, Courtney Wild, Bruce Willis, Daniel Wilson, Andrew Albert. That is a long name, Mr. Duke of New York. And this isn't even the entire list. This is just part of the list. But I thought it should be on TikTok. So there we go. Spread the word. I feel like it's so illegal. Like, why can you just redact names, but you have to put everyone? I don't understand.
We, the public, will never see a full list of the names that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And why we know we'll never see that list is a great look into how deep this Jeffrey Epstein case really goes. When Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in June of 2019, his Upper East Side townhouse was raided by the FBI. As we can see here, the FBI found diamonds, cash, passports, CDs, and hard drives. That was after opening a safe that they found on the 5th floor of this townhouse.
Now, you guys won't believe this. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Britain's Prince Andrew are among the names appearing in newly unsealed documents in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Like I said earlier, he is a multimillionaire accused of trafficking before unaliving himself in prison in 2019. Now, most of the information in these documents has already been made public, and it's important to note that the inclusion of someone's name is not an indication of wrongdoing. Now, these documents released from court stem from a lawsuit that was brought back in 2015 against Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it was a civil lawsuit for defamation where eventually they settled the case. But finally, after years, the documents have been released, and some specific and pretty important information coming from the depositions that were taken by the lawyers from an associate of Jeffrey Epstein, a woman who used to work for him, where she says that Jeffrey Epstein told her that former President Clinton liked them young, referring to girls. Now, the former president denied any wrongdoing, and there are no accusations in the court filings of any kind of wrongdoing or any kind of activity on the part of the former president. Now, a spokesperson for the former president said that along as he did in 2019, that he denies doing anything wrong. He does admit to being on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, but he says it's been nearly 20 years since the former president had any contact with Epstein, and of course that Clinton has not been accused of any crimes or wrongdoing related to Epstein, and also in that same deposition. Now, from the former employee, we learned that she says, according to her deposition, that Jeffrey Epstein, they were on a plane together on one of Epstein's plane heading to New York City, and they couldn't land in New York, so they had to go to Atlantic City. And she says while on the plane, Jeffrey Epstein told her that we'll call Trump and we'll go to Atlantic City, and she said they would end up going to a casino. Now, she doesn't remember what that casino was. And again, the significance of this is that we're seeing two former presidents' names here being mentioned are not necessarily new. Now, we should also note Donald Trump is not accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein in the documents. Now, Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Bruce Willis were not named in Jeffrey Epstein's associates list. But why are people claiming this? Well, these celebrities mentioned in the court files released on Thursday, the 4th of January, as part of a defamation lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell by one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre. But they were only mentioned when one abuse victim was asked if she met the following celebrities. She answered not to meeting Naomi Campbell, Al Gore, Alan Dershowitz, Les Wexner, Tom Pritzker, Kevin Spacey, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, Cameron Diaz, and Bruce Willis. But just a few that were named by the victim as associates of the disgraced pedophile were Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Prince Andrew. But they haven't been proved of any wrongdoing. Now, misinformation is rife around this story, with fake AI-generated pictures causing confusion to social media users looking for credible information. In fact, Jimmy Kimmel has threatened to sue Aaron Rodgers after the NFL star baselessly implied the talk show host could be on Jeffrey Epstein's client list. Now, here's what we know about the case against Epstein. Epstein was arrested at the airport in New Jersey on July 6 after arriving back in the United States from France. Now, he was charged by federal prosecutors the following Monday. Per the indictment, over the course of many years, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, exploited and abused dozens of minors at his homes in Manhattan, New York, and Palm Beach, Florida, among other locations. Now, his indictment also noted that in order to maintain and increase his supply of victims, Epstein also paid certain of his victims to recruit additional girls to be similarly abused. Now, the prosecution alleged that he assaulted girls as young as 14 years old, and federal prosecutors also searched his New York City home following his arrest. According to the New York Times, during the search of his townhouse on Saturday, investigators seized photographs of nude underage girls. Epstein pleaded not guilty. He was denied bail, and as mentioned above, he unalived himself in his cell before the trial. Now, Epstein's high-profile social circle only amplified the attention on this case. Epstein was known to associate with politicians on both sides of the aisle, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, to name just two, numerous celebrities and other people in the public eye. Following the news of his recent arrest, Trump said he has distanced himself from Epstein in recent years. "I had a falling out with him," the president said, according to the New York Times. "I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. I was not a fan of his, that I can tell you." Former President Bill Clinton issued a public statement acknowledging that he has ridden on Epstein's private plane, but that he was unaware of Epstein's criminal activity. Now, President Clinton knows nothing about the terrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida some years ago, or those with which he has been recently charged in New York, reads the statement from a Clinton spokesperson. Now, in 2002 and 2003, President Clinton took a total of 4 trips on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane, 1 to Europe, 1 to Asia, and 2 to Africa, which included stops in connection with the work of the Clinton Foundation. Now, they met in 1999, and the extent of their relationship is somewhat unclear, but the two men were spotted walking together in Central Park in the late 2010. At that point, Epstein was already a convicted ex-offender. In the months following Epstein's unaliving, Prince Andrew spoke out against him and his crimes in statements from Buckingham Palace. Now, in November 2019, Prince Andrew also spoke about his relationship with Epstein with Newsnight, a conversation which journalist Emily Maltlis described as a no-holds-barred interview. They discussed how Prince Andrew first met Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell and spoke about the times the royal stayed at Epstein's various properties. Prince Andrew also denied allegations that he had sex with one of Epstein's alleged victims, Virginia Giuffre, multiple times. "I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady, none whatsoever," Prince Andrew said. Additionally, Prince Andrew admitted that it was wrong to visit Epstein in New York City in 2010. But during that conversation, the Duke of York said he did not regret his friendship with Epstein, and he did not explicitly express sympathy for his former friends' victims. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts or views on this video, and see you in my next video.